This is Robert R. Ricks, and this is the second and final part of the novella, The Rusted Blade, which I wrote last year, 2019. Print version of this book is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, as well as Lulu. You can find it and other Noveps stories at noveps.com, noveps.com. I'll be doing audiobooks of different stories as time continues. If you like the story, do me a favor, share it far and wide. Get it out there. Let people know about it. This motherfucker writes really crazy shit, and he is fucking cool. Okay, enough of the jibber jabber. Here's the conclusion of The Rusted Blade.
Gail stood in front of the red door for a while, and finally as she reached for the handle it opened, and Melinda stood there with sadness in her eyes as she beheld her withered garden. "I'll finally sleep good tonight. And for that, I thank you. Please come in. A bargain is a bargain." Gail stepped in and continued walking until she was back in the study where they had been talking earlier. "My dear, I can see in your eyes you have indeed done what you promised you would. What can I try to answer for you? The blade is almost free of the rust." Gail revealed the blade to Melinda, who nodded. "Yes, the blade still requires a tribute," Melinda said in a low solemn tone. "What tribute?" "Lovers' chambers hold a key, to make the blade what it's meant to be," said Melinda. "You know the poem?" Melinda nodded. "My brother read it endlessly. But how is this possible? I just came in possession of it and have but 24 hours to solve it. Because, dear child, he was the one who wrote it. For me? For someone. Everyone has a price to pay, a role to play, go away or fight and stay. It's all a stage. What is life? What is death? Do we really exist?" He struggled with all of those questions and more. "And you?" She smiled at Gail and nodded. "I say, who cares? Why bother? If we die, we die? Is there an afterlife? Who cares? If there is, we'll find out or we won't. I'd rather enjoy my time here and savor the experiences while I can." Melinda was staring at Gail as if she were trying to convey some silent message, and Gail felt stupid, she couldn't understand. "So lovers' chambers hold a key. There are two thoughts here. Neither one pleasant. If you take the lovers' chambers and be literal with it, then it could mean sexual organs. Specifically, a vagina is a chamber. And the chamber holds a key. The penis could be a key. When my brother proposed this to me at first, I laughed and thought how ridiculous that is. Then after careful contemplation, I thought, why the hell not? Obviously, if death and blood are part of this, then what would either penetration or desecration of the vagina and or severing or mutilating a penis in the grand scheme of things?" Gail nodded and felt embarrassed speaking about sexual organs and realized the absurdity of the situation, with what she had already gone through and done. "And the other thought? That one is easier in some ways but probably infinitely more tragic. The lover's chamber being a heart. But a heart of someone who is truly in love." Gail nodded. "I suppose to be thorough, you could do both to be on the safe side." It was Melinda's turn to be shocked by how quickly Gail had come to the practical side of torture and murder again. I suppose you're correct. In any event, there it is. That is the way to bring the blade back into the game as a powerful piece." "Piece?" "Yes, like chess. Have you played it?" Melinda showed Gail an ornate chessboard carved from a single large piece of wood. The playing surface was black and white marble. The pieces were masterfully carved figures which held actual faces, and the horses of the knight seemed so realistic that it seemed they could start moving at any moment. "I have never seen a board like this before," said Gail, captivated by the details on the pieces. "Yes, it is a priceless piece. Tell you what. If somehow you survive all of this, you come back to me and I will give this to you. Perhaps we'll even play a game or two." Gail smiled and then paused and thought about Melinda's statement, "if you survive. You don't think I'll live, do you?" "My brother didn't, and he had a clue or two about what he was facing. Do you know what's in the box?" Melinda nodded. "Do I want to know?" "Probably not." "Why?" "Oh wow. How to put it mildly? 'Cause it will fuck you up." Gail stared at Melinda. "Kill me?" "No. But is it the answer to the puzzle?" "Okay, here's the last answer I can give you. Opening the box is an answer but not the only answer. Do you understand me?" "Yes." "Okay, it's getting late and you're running out of time. Right?" Gail glanced at her watch and saw it was 3:33 a.m. and she cursed. She had 12 hours left to get things in order. She knew she needed to find a couple in love and do what she needed to do to make the blade whole again. Melinda escorted her to the front door, and as Gail passed her, Melinda reached out and grabbed Gail and pulled her to her and hugged her. Gail paused, not sure what to do and why the woman had felt the need to embrace her. Finally, Melinda released her and wiped a single tear from her eye and closed the door. Gail put the blade in her backpack and read the parchment again slowly and thought about the conversation with Melinda. She put the parchment away and slung her backpack securely and realized she was starving. She hadn't eaten she couldn't recall the last meal she had had. "Well, I'm hungry," she said to herself. She knew there was a burger joint a block back past her work. She started walking back and she could hear Alice's voice. "Okay, we're getting close now. You're probably starving, right? Heading to that greasy-ass burger joint that you always eat at?" Gail nodded. "Yeah. I think a bacon burger would hit the spot nicely," said Gail with a slight smile. "With extra onions, no pickles?" responded Alice with a focused stare. "Yeah. There's a reason you always eat that. But it doesn't matter at the moment. So, what's next on your list?" "You tell me, all-knowing hare of knowledge." "I'm a fucking rabbit, not a hare." "Big difference." Gail shrugged. "If you say so." "Shit, you should know the difference, you used to own fucking rabbits. You had a goddamned rabbit farm." "What?" "Never mind, let's stay focused. You're on your way to find true love so you can castrate some poor fuck and blade fuck his lady. Then you plan on plunging that monster of a blade into their hearts." Gail stopped and stared at the Alice and her head pounded. "You trying to tell me that's wrong?" "Yes, but it's only a small kindness you'd provide, since you don't have to castrate and penetrate. But you will need to kill one of them, not both. Do you understand me?" "Yes." Gail's mind was racing. "What else do you know, Alice? What do you know of the box?" "Holy shit! That's the prize, right? The fucking box. You notice that shit is locked up pretty tight?" "Yeah. Electrical tape and duct tape on all of it. Also, wax sealed?" "Yes. My advice?" "Sure. Do not open it. Leave it be." Alice paused after each word to let the weight of it sink in with Gail. "Do you understand me?" "Yes." "Good, cause I'm not sure how long I'll be able to hang out in here. It's getting harder for me to hold on. Just remember what I told you. Follow your instincts. You'll know what's the right move. Wait for clarity." "Where are you going, Alice?" "Don't worry, I'm always there to do the heavy lifting. You just hang on. I love you, you know?" Gail didn't know how to respond. Love, what did it mean? How did you know if you loved someone? She looked down to say something to Alice but she was gone. Gail was alone again, and she was afraid and cold. Gail continued to the burger shop aptly named Greasy Ass Delicious Burgers. She walked into the restaurant and stood at the counter. A red-haired woman with freckles smiled at her and asked, "What would you like?" "I'd like a bacon cheeseburger, heavy onions, and no pickles." "I'm dead serious, if there are pickles there, I will go crazy." The young woman smiled. "I know. I hate pickles too. Would you like any French fries? A drink?" Gail nodded. "Yes, please. Fries and a Coke." "Okay, that'll be $16.66. Gail pulled out her wallet and retrieved her debit card, and as she did, a piece of paper fell to the floor. She handed the debit card to the woman and grabbed the paper off the floor. She saw it was a note and realized that Melinda must have put it in her pocket as she hugged her. She stood up and didn't read the note. She held it and waited. The woman handed her back her debit card which she placed in her wallet. She tucked the wallet away and waited. "Okay, your order is number 13. We'll bring it to your table. Just put this on the edge of the table." Gail grabbed the marker and found a table, sat down and placed the marker where she needed to, then glanced around and noted it was just the cashier, the cook, and her in the restaurant. She opened the note which read, "The rabbit is right, the spider is wrong. Beware of the spider." She balled up the note and waited. A few minutes passed and the food was brought to the table. She ate and felt ravenous. After eating the food, she didn't feel satiated at all. She took the balled up note and popped it in her mouth and swallowed it with a large gulp of her Coke. Gail examined the bite on her hand and rubbed at it absent-mindedly. "Hey, you okay?" Gail looked up and the young woman was there smiling at her. Yeah. Just tired. So damn tired. You ever have a day where it feels like you're so tired you could sleep forever?" "Yeah. I work fast food. Every day is like that. It sucks. How about you?" "I work at the storage spot a block that way." "Oh, the U-Store-Yer-Stuff?" "Yup, that's the one. What do you do there?" "I always wondered." "Well, mostly, they tell me to go into storage units, and clean them up and get them ready for the next tenants. I clean up messes and get paid. Doesn't sound too bad." "No, not really, but all my coworkers are boring as hell and can't hold down a decent conversation." "Really, like what? Like what is the last book you read?" "That wasn't on a list." The woman considered for a moment and smiled. "I just finished reading Dante's Divine Comedy. A little tough going but it was pretty crazy." Gail blinked and then smiled. I've been meaning to read that. Tell me about it. Dante is this guy who is trying to walk the right path and ends up going through all kinds of stuff and is rescued by his friend Virgil. They end up going through the different sections of Afterlife. Really trippy stuff. But if I had to sum up the meaning of it, I'd have to say Dante's Divine Comedy is a roadmap of finding redemption going from hell to purgatory and finally heaven. So, you believe in that? What? Afterlife? Why not? How about redemption? For sure. I used to be this hellraiser and my mama would get so mad at me. Then I got mixed up in drugs and started doing really crazy stuff. I was stealing, and whatever it took to get more drugs. What happened? Well, I met this guy Devin and he was a true blue miracle. Super nice. He treated me really good. Unlike my boyfriend at the time, a loser named Marco. Well, I broke it off with Marco and things were good with me and Devin for a little bit. He helped me get all cleaned up and start believing in myself. Marco wanted to give me back my car and I knew he was trying to set me up, so I told him to just keep the stupid thing. Devin had overheard the conversation and wanted to be my knight in shining armor and went to get the car without me knowing. Well, Marco saw him and when they got to talking, he gave the keys to Devin, and as he was driving away Marco pulled a gun and shot him in the head and killed him. The love of my life died in my junky old car. Oh my god. I'm so sorry. Don't be. I took all that pain and sorrow and used it as fuel, and I joined the US Army. Kicked some major butts too. So how did you end up here? I'm not sure, I keep asking myself the same question. I used to flip burgers when I was younger, maybe that had something to do with it. I know I was in the military training. Next thing, I'm here. You should so apply at my job, I would push to get you hired. I would love to hang out with you and talk nerd stuff and geek out. Right? Well, I'm glad you're okay. I better get back to work. Gail nodded and looked at the woman's name tag. It read Gina with a heart over the I. I'm gonna head out too. Was good talking to you, Gina. You too. Be safe. I will. Gail stood and her spirit was in a better mood as if clouds were parting after a particularly brutal storm. She steeled herself as she knew she still needed to find the right couple and do the dirty work. She thought and glanced at her watch which told her it was 6:23 a.m. She knew the sun would be rising soon. Then she thought back to her conversation with Brian Cruz about the couple which was coming to see the unit at B12. She wondered if they were in love. It would be the last piece of the blade puzzle. And then there would be the matter of the iron box. She looked around to see if Alice was anywhere. No one was on the street and the sky had gotten darker than she had ever seen it before. She felt the strong cold wind tear into her, and she was so cold. Her body ached. She wondered if it was the poison of grandmother working its way through her system. She examined her bite again and noted the bites were deeper than she had recalled, and also noted there were other scars on her arms that she hadn't noticed before. Where did you come from? She asked as she ran her fingers over the scars. Her head pounded. The headaches were almost blinding to her. I'll just head to work and wait it out there, she said aloud to herself so she could hear something other than the howling wind. She arrived back at her work and unlocked the front door, walked in, and then locked it back up. She went to her cubicle and logged into her machine. She checked her email and there was a message from Brian, informing her that the couple needed to come in earlier since they had a busy day ahead of them with a wedding they were planning. She smiled. Her luck was with her. She replied to the email that she was already in the office and was available when they needed. She was getting anxious. Gail stood and did jumping jacks then dropped into 25 push-ups. She retrieved her radio and placed it on her hip after turning it on and checking the batteries. She then retrieved her tablet and looked up the couple which would be coming. She read the request and they were looking for a storage unit large enough to store their 5-bedroom house as they built their new dream home. Nice! Their names were Frank Saberhagen and Jasmine Yamashita. Gail had to make a decision. Would she kill both of them or only one? Was it a worse fate to leave one alive? If she did choose to only kill one, would it be the man or the woman? She decided it would have to be a decision she would make as the event played out. There was a chime on her workstation, and she read the email which caused her heart to begin pounding. They are already in the neighborhood. Please be ready to show them the unit. She hit reply and answered I am ready and waiting. Thank you. She hit send and then she waited. It didn't take long for the couple to arrive. Gail had seen the car drive up and park in front of the building. She unlocked the front door and greeted them as they approached. Hello, my name is Gail and I'll be showing you the unit you requested, B12. The man stepped forward and extended his hand which she shook firmly. Great, my name is Frank Saberhagen and this is my fiancée Jasmine. She shook Jasmine's hand as well. Okay, if you'll follow me. It's in the sub-basement. Oh, is it scary there? Asked Jasmine with a sense of dread filling her. Where, in the sub-basement? Yes. No. It's kinda dark since there are no windows down there. It's like a giant cement block of rooms down there. But it's cool. Nothing to be worried about. I hope there's no spiders, Jasmine said as she held onto Frank's arm. I'm sure it's fine, he responded with a smile, right? He added with a slightly nervous tone. There's some there but they won't hurt you. The couple nodded. Gail locked the door behind her as they entered. We're not officially open for another hour or so, said Gail as she led them into the office. Gail examined her device and read quickly. Okay, so looks like all the paperwork is done and you've paid your deposit. So let me take you down there and show you the unit. It's one of the older ones. Been here well over 50 years. Really? How hard will it be for the movers to get the stuff into the unit? Well, we have the freight elevator there. Depending on how much stuff, it'll be a few trips for them. The weight limit for the elevator is 2,000 pounds. Which sounds like a lot, but you'd be surprised by how often folks overload it. Frank nodded. Gail continued to lead them towards the elevator. She pressed the call button and waited. She wondered why the elevator had returned to the basement level since she was sure she was the last to use the elevator. So, when's the wedding? Gail asked to help pass the time, and also to get a better feel for the couple. Soon? Said Jasmine. Yeah, we had to move it up sooner. Why is that? Because we're gonna have a baby and Jasmine doesn't want the baby to be a bastard. Language, honey. Sorry. A baby? Asked Gail, surprised. Yes. She's 4 months along. Gail glanced down and noted the woman was just barely showing. She had a very athletic build and looked to be in shape. The man also was in peak physical shape and looked wired and strong like a fighter. Wow, that's exciting. So, what do you guys do for a living? Jasmine smiled. I'm in accounting. Frank has several businesses that he manages. Some deal with finance and then there's the gun company. Yeah, that's my passion really. I love the guns. God bless the Second Amendment, right? Honey, not everyone is into guns. I don't mind them. I'm more of a knife collector. Really? Gail nodded. The elevator arrived and she opened the gate and motioned for the couple to enter. She got in and the buttons were on the rear of the elevator. She pushed a button and the elevator groaned and moaned as it started its slow descent. Yeah, I just got a piece from one of the unit auctions. Wanna see it? Frank nodded excitedly. Hang on, it's in my backpack here. Gail swung the backpack to the front and unzipped it and pulled it out by the blade and held it by the bladed edge, then unwrapped it, showing the handle. Wow! That's an interesting piece. Can I see it? Sure. Gail handed the blade to Frank, who examined it and noted the rest on the jewel. Wow, it's almost perfect. The only thing weird about it is this rust here. He motioned at the spot and Gail nodded as he scratched at it. I have literally tried so many things, but I think I might have figured out how to fix it. Really? Do tell. I'm always dealing with rust issues, and if you have some secret remedy, I'm all ears. They arrived at the sub-basement level and the door slid open. I have it down by the maintenance closet. It's pretty close to your unit actually. Sweet. Here. He handed Gail the blade and she held it awkwardly, and just barely covered it with the cloth as they walked. They passed the unit and she pointed at it. That'll be your unit. Jasmine noted the lock. It's still locked. I've never seen a lock like that before. Yup. That's mine. I wanted to make sure no one messed around in there. I cleared it out yesterday and got it ready. But since there are other units here, sometimes other customers toss their trash and open empty units, and so I didn't want to clean it twice. Know what I mean? Totally. People can be real jerks sometimes, said Frank as he followed Gail as she walked on. She got to the maintenance closet and took out the pail. She took out the rust cleaner as well and Frank looked confused. I've used that in the past. Works great. Is that the secret mix? Gail sighed. The time had come, and she knew it was now or never, and part of her didn't want to make the decision. Another part of her knew if she didn't do what she was supposed to, it would mean the end of her life in a very painful manner. Another line in the parchment came to mind, every action price to pay, in the end, you'd wish you didn't play. No. Actually, the secret is you. Frank looked confused, but he was trained, and his instincts kicked in. Gail flipped the blade and grabbed it and struck out with the speed of a viper and nearly scored the hit. Frank rolled at the last moment and was reaching behind him, and she knew all at once he had a firearm on him. She shoved Jasmine at him and his concern for her caused him to change his position to catch her, and Gail swung under Jasmine and scored a hit directly in Frank's heart. Jasmine screamed as she saw the blood exploding out of the love of her life. In horror and shock, she stared at Gail. Why? Would you? Gail swung with the speed and skill of a trained MMA fighter, and as she connected with Jasmine's jaw, she watched the woman spin and begin to fall. She caught her and gently placed her on the ground. She saw Frank was still moving. The blade protruded from his chest and Gail saw the rust on the jewel fade away, and the jewel she discovered was a brilliant blood-red ruby that glowed and pulsed. Frank's mouth moved and he reached for the small of his back and Gail shook her head. I only needed to kill you. If you make this harder, I will kill her and your unborn child as well. Allow yourself to die and I swear nothing else will happen to them." Anger and frustration played on his face, and understanding did as well. He didn't know why but he believed her, and he nodded. Another passage from the parchment played in her mind: "Hold the edge this way and that, but must be sheathed sleeping as a bat." She examined Frank in the position he was sitting with the blade sticking straight out horizontally. She sighed. "Really sorry to do this, Frank, but I need the blade a certain way." Gail pulled him forward, and as she did, he screamed out in pain. She reached under him and twisted the blade this way and that, and suddenly Frank was still. The blood that poured out was being absorbed by the blade and it grew brighter and brighter. Gail went into the closet and got wire and duct tape and bound and gagged Jasmine, then put her in one of the empty storage units. She walked to Unit B12 and put her hand on the lock. "It's me. Unlock please." The lock clicked and hung open. She retrieved it and put it in her pocket. She opened the metal door and it slid up quickly. Grandmother was sitting atop the dresser and seemed to be waiting. "You're early. I wasn't expecting you until later. I worked through the night." The large spider examined Gail. "I see you had conversations with the white rabbit." "Yes, I did. And? Doesn't matter. I've killed and there's a man down the hall there who is acting as the blade's sheath." "Ah, so the blade is primed and ready?" "I suppose so. What's next, Gail? Have you figured the puzzle out?" "First answer this for me. If I pull the blade free, how long until it loses its charge?" "Once you pull it from him, you'll have 10 minutes. And charged it'll be powerful enough to break the iron box open?" "Yes. But to really ensure it'll do the job you should kill the woman and her unborn child." "I thought about that as well. So then you have made your decision?" "No. Really?" "Yup. Why then did you kill the man?" "Because I think I've come to realize some things. As I've done these horrible things and bore witness to other atrocities, some things started to become apparent to me. Little things at first." "Interesting. You have my attention." "Good." Gail walked out of the room and retrieved the blade from Frank, who appeared to be completely drained of blood. The husk of his body laid there. She removed the cloak and dropped it on top of his body, and it began to devour what was left of him. She walked back into D12 and smiled at grandmother. Gail revealed the blade to grandmother, who stared and was silent. "Have you decided how to solve the puzzle?" Gail stared at the blade, specifically the bloody ruby, and she saw a reflection in it. As she stared deeper, she saw the image of Gina at the burger restaurant. Then she saw the white rabbit, Alice. And then she saw the little girl, Isabel, she had liberated from the disgusting pedophile. Finally, she saw the image of the iron box, and through the pain, she learned a great many things. The parchment's poem had said, "Only through pain can you grow, and the truth will you know." Grandmother's legs tensed and Gail saw that the spider prepared itself to leap at her. "I know one answer to my current situation." "Please continue." "If I opened the iron box there, you would still kill me. If I did nothing, you would kill me. There is no scenario where I live, because this has happened many times before. Hasn't it, grandmother?" The spider was silent for a moment. "That damn rabbit! I told you not to listen to her. How could I not listen to myself? Damn it!" Suddenly the spider jumped, and Gail stepped to the side and slashed at the spider. The great Durandal guided her hand, and the blade was indestructible and was capable of cutting through boulders. A spider, regardless of how large, was no match, and the steamy internals of grandmother spilled out on the floor. Instantly Gail felt the wound on her arm flare up. Pain racked her body. She dropped the blade and fell to the floor screaming as electricity flowed into her body and into her mind. Darkness rushed quickly towards Gail and she fought against it. She managed to grab her blade and pull it close to her. She silently wondered if she was dying. She smiled and her mind became clear and she understood. Malcolm Masters stood staring at the chaos in the room. Alarms were sounding in the dark room, strobed with red lights, and the high-pitched alarm was irritating and grinded into his ears. "What the fuck happened?" he screamed. He stood over 6'5" and had a stocky build. His face was a mixture of anger and frustration. Machines were glitching out and the three men studied the monitors, which showed vital signs which were spiking high and low and had them completely confused. "I don't fucking know, Malcolm. The program was running as it always does and she fought it and things stabilized. We figured things were getting close. We almost broke her this time. But some weird shit started happening. We had some anomalistic readings during the sessions. Similar to before, but they would subside. Okay, so tell me this. Will she be fucking ready for deployment? We need her to be ready." The other man was very tall and had a lean build. His face held cruel features, and he was symmetrically beautiful and ugly at the same time. He never smiled, and the years of scowls and frowns had left permanent wrinkles in his appearance. "When are we wanting her activated in the field?" He asked coldly. Next month. Yeah, we should have her completely broken by then. You fucking better. There was an obvious dangerous tone in the way he said it that made the tall man flinch. Get the machines back online and start the procedure again. The smaller of the three men cleared his throat loud enough to get their attention. Maybe we let her rest? The last 4 times got progressively worse on her. I'm concerned we are pushing too hard. We're already in uncharted territory with the TR-89 serum in her. Some of the early testing with this subject showed possible psionic abilities. I'm not sure pushing as much as we have in her, and back to back, if the programming is working. I think we might be defeating ourselves. We might want to switch in some other protocols. My data is suggesting she built up some sort of protective environment. Like what, a wall? I'm not sure. It almost seems like she has created a special room or container to protect some part of herself. Shit, maybe even a cocoon. Charles! You're a fucking pussy man. Just reload the system. Then we'll set her up for another round. This time we'll monitor closer, and see about those fucking anomalies. Charles stared at his lab partner with anger apparent on his face. Byron McMasters was an agency man through and through, and when he was kicked out of the company, he was more than happy to jump to Kerberos International to continue his twisted research. Dude, we spent months working her over. I'm telling you, this shit has a really bad feel to it. Plus, when I agreed to the research, I didn't know we'd be actually torturing people. Some of this shit you're doing is jacked up, man. Then I guess it's a good thing I run things here. Charles, do me a favor. Reset the damn machines and shut off the alarms. Byron, you had better be right. We've invested a sizable amount of money for this program, and if you have broken one of our best and brightest, I can assure you it will end badly for you. Sir. I am sure this will yield the desired results. The results will be easily reproducible, and we'll be able to create an army of soldiers you can activate remotely with lethal accuracy. Your friends in the CIA weren't too happy with the last few of your operatives. Some of that shit went public. Yes, because we were using students and other less than desirable people who were too mentally fragile. The men continued their conversation and Charles ignored them. He was focused on verifying equipment and test subject. Charles shut the alarms off and checked the leads on the woman who was strapped onto a modified table. He checked each of the sensors and was confused. The biofeedback they were recording made no sense. The readings specifically from her brain waves were unlike anything he had ever seen before. The last moment of the program had spiked and actually exceeded the recording equipment's thresholds. He stood next to the woman on the table. He had been working with her for 2.5 months. There would be days where he would check on her and give her comforting words when he knew Byron was not around to see it. He opened one of her eyelids and shone a light in and watched as the pupils dilated correctly to the presence of light. That was a good sign. Her brain was responding as it should, which relieved him. The spike before the system crashed had terrified him. He was afraid they had somehow inadvertently caused irreparable damage to her mind. He had his suspicions about her past, as certain data markers suggested some of the scenarios she was creating for herself was from traumatic experiences. "Hang in there, Lisa," he said gently. He gently put a hand on her shoulder and then checked her pulse manually with his fingers against her neck. Strong and steady. Good. Good. He bent down and traced the wires and made sure there were no kinks in the line. When he verified they were fine, he nodded and went back to the terminal where he spent the majority of his time during the experiments. Okay, the system is rebooted. All vitals are good. I checked all the sensors. We're 5 by 5 now. Charles, you better be sure. Let's prep for another round. Seriously? Yes. Okay, it's your call. Again, for the record, I think this is fucking reckless and stupid. Oh my fucking god, will you just prep and start it up? I'm going to increase the dosage of the TR-89. Jesus Christ, man. Why? We don't know for sure what that shit does. You haven't shared any of your research notes with me. When you pump her with that shit, the system gets some seriously odd data. Then track the damn data. That's why you were hired. Good at interpreting the data. Do your fucking job and leave the real science to the... Byron had a needle out and walked towards the woman, and as he approached, he felt an electrical current rise in the room. "Oh shit!" said Charles as he saw the data on his screen shift to all green and yellow. "What?" asked Byron as he stared at the woman cautiously. I think she's awake." "Put her under. Use the gas." "I would, but she's not breathing." Byron glanced down and saw the woman's eyes flip open, and he saw a glint of something flash, and there was a moment of pain on his inner thighs, and he dropped to the ground confused. "Byron?" Malcolm bellowed out in alarm. He pulled a revolver, and as he moved to pull the trigger, again, the flash of something metallic and then an ornate blade protruded from his head and he dropped to the ground. Charles was frozen and confused. Where had Lisa gotten a knife from? He stood and stared at her. "Lisa? If you want to fucking live, come and unstrap me, Charles ran over quickly and began to unstrap her. "Who the hell are you?" Lisa asked. "My name is Charles Jacobson." "Charles, where are we?" She looked around the room and saw they were in a lab of some sort, and the room was roughly 40 feet by 40 feet and the ceiling was high, perhaps 20 feet tall. There were doors on all sides of the rooms, and near the ceiling were several monitors which displayed different angles of the woman on the table. "You're in a Kerberos lab. Why? You were drafted into a program for..." "For?" He finished unstrapping her and she jumped up and stumbled. He moved quickly and helped her get her feet under her. "Careful! You are really doped up. You're not even supposed to be fully awake. I don't even know how you're walking and talking." She steadied herself, then walked and stood over Malcolm. She looked at him with the blade in his head. She pulled it free and wiped the blade on his clothing. She noted the blood that remained was absorbed quickly, leaving the blade shiny and clean. Charles saw the blood vanish and he was amazed. "Wait, did I just see what I think I saw? What is that?" "It's Durandal. And the only reason you're still breathing, Charles, is I need answers and you seem genuinely concerned for my well-being. That got you a temporary pass. Why were you calling me Lisa? 'Cause that's your name." "No, my name is Gail O'Brien." "Gail? Oh, fuck. Fuck? What? Oh shit, I knew it. Give me a second, I need to find his fucking file on you." He ran to a cabinet and pulled several folders out and examined each one and quickly tossed the folders away which were not a match for what he searched for. Finally, he found what he was looking for and read. So I don't know how to explain this to you." He started. "Before you do, are we safe here?" Gail was looking around and took the pistol from Malcolm's hand. We're off-site. Remote location. The closest base to us is about 100 miles from here." "Safe?" she asked tersely. Yeah. Okay, continue." "You were groomed from a very, very young age. I knew Byron was a fucking douchebag. But I didn't know how fucking evil and deranged a douchebag he was. This is your file. Every time I asked to review it, he would tell me need to know. Let me just say, if after I tell you the stuff in here, if you want to kill me, I get it. But for the record, I didn't know any of this shit." Gail nodded. "Okay. Your birth name is Lisa O'Brien. Your father was Justin O'Brien and he is dead now." "How? You killed him?" "I did? Yes. He was molesting you and was part of some occult faction. You were then brought into Kerberos and Byron had you as part of a project, Phoenix. Most of that section of your file is heavily redacted. But there's this page where he mentions distinct personalities. He names Gina, Alice, Isabel, Lisa. There's also a reference to a Lilith." Gail's head was pounding. Images swirled in her head and voices also. "Okay. What were you guys doing with my head?" "He was using a serum which was supposed to augment reflexes and abilities to make you more deadly." "Guess that worked." Charles nodded. "And also make you controllable. The system was designed and patterned off of the old MK Ultra program." "Controlled? Like a slave?" "More like a robot. Series of base commands with follow-up confirmation." "Like, do you understand me?" she asked. "Yes. I see. Do you have money? Assets?" "I have some here on site with me." "How much?" 1,000. Maybe more. There's probably more in his room." "Okay, let's get what we can and we're out of here." "Where are we going?" "Let's just get moving and then take it from there." "Can I ask you a question?" Charles asked in a very serious tone which caused Gail to pause. "Sure. Where did you get that knife?" "I know for a fact there isn't one here on base. My grandmother gave it to me." "Yes, the grandmother program. That was the last one that crashed everything. That wasn't supposed to happen. But then there was a lot that wasn't supposed to happen. Especially the weird sub-program, that I didn't know was in the system." "What was that?" "There was a program in there that seemed to be guiding you at some points. I found it near the end and isolated it, then put it on the side to follow up and check on it later." "What do you mean guide?" "There's a bunch of scenarios in there you're supposed to come across on your own. Organic discovery makes the brain more susceptible. Easier to program?" "Yeah, but in that last session there was a program I hadn't seen before which pushed you to some major points, and I don't know how or why. First, I thought it was a glitch, but then I saw it was actually a subroutine in the main code base. Assume I know nothing about computer programming and explain it to me like I'm a child." "Okay, the program was designed to make toast. It would allow you to discover how to make toast. Grow wheat, harvest wheat, grind the wheat, make the flour, mix ingredients and then cook the bread. Finally, toast the bread. Well, there was a hidden program in there that basically said, fuck that, here's the grocery list, go buy the bread and then make the toast. Get it?" Gail nodded and had a sneaky suspicion. If I were to wake up like I did earlier and start asking questions, what do you suppose would happen? Charles looked at Malcolm. You have his gun now, and you saw what he was trying to do. He didn't want the program to fail, but there were instructions that stated, if the program went sideways, you were to be terminated. If you survive. Excuse me? Nothing. Here in the real world, does the name Anton Valadova or Melinda Valadova mean anything to you? Charles paused and his eyes widened. How do you know them? I asked you a question, Charles. Anton was the father of MK Ultra. His daughter, Dr. Melinda Valadova, continued his work and wrote. Most of your software? Yeah. Well, what do you know about chess? A lot actually. Why? 'Cause you're going to do two things when we leave this place. Okay. Number 1, you're going to tell me everything you know about Valadova, and number 2, you're going to teach me everything you know about chess. Why? Because I have a game or two ahead of me with Melinda. Oh, shit. Why so concerned? Kerberos International is but a single arm of their empire. This is one of her companies. Well, I think she'll have a very interesting story to tell us. We're going to New York. I know where she'll be at. You're gonna help me. Do you understand me? Charles nodded and began gathering the resources he knew they were going to need. He glanced back at Gail and saw her smile. It was the first time he had seen it and it was radiant.
That's it, that's the story. I really hope you enjoyed it. As before, if you did, please consider sharing this and letting people know about me, as well as the stories that I write, Real-Time Storytime, Noveps, Rhyme-Ass Publishing, everything. I have over 100 stories that I'm working on right now. There's going to be lots and lots and lots of cool shit coming. And yeah, we've not seen the last of Fair Gail. Nope, she'll be back. She'll be back. Alright, that's it. Thanks, guys.